Hey everybody, welcome back to another super exciting Art of War stream. This one's going to be a little bit different. I've got a special guest here, Scott Ketcham, who just hit the finals with his Sisters of Battle at the US Open in Tacoma. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited for this, Nick. What do you got for us?
This is actually an idea that you had, Scott, so I don't want to take too much credit for it. But you came to me after the game. I commentated at least the first half of it, which was awesome. Your sisters versus Marshall Peterson's Orcs in a very climactic and exciting final battle. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, you didn't win that game, Scott.
No, no. So, I didn't win, and I thought, in retrospect, there were definitely opportunities where I could have done better. And I thought, you know what, this might be really fun to talk to Nick Nanavati, who saw the game, and kind of do his little coaching match recap style talk about our game. I can explain my thoughts behind what I wanted to do and what I was thinking, and Nick can tell me where I was utterly wrong and can help me how to figure out how to be a better player next time.
Yeah.
So this is kind of for everybody at Art of War and everyone else who might be interested in learning how players think and how they can be better.
Absolutely. So this is a piece of content that's going to help Scott, hopefully. I'm going to be able to coach him on some high-level 40K finesse, but also hopefully be accessible to everyone watching, hopefully help you guys get an idea of how Sisters and Orcs operate at the top tables, how top players think about the game, and how they approach their problems. And ultimately, it give you a teaser of what is actually in the War Room, because this is just a sample of that content. We do coaching match recaps, we do coaching matches, we do all kinds of other stuff like Jack theories and strategy sessions, all centered around helping you learn the game, become your best. For our production quality here, we basically gone through and taken pictures. Scott's taken pictures of the US Open stream from twitch.tv/Warhammer. So this is screenshots of an overhead camera. It is not the nicest looking battle report ever, but it is still a visual battle report. You'll get the gist of it. So just take that with a grain of salt. Scott, why don't you go ahead and tell them about your army list here?
Yeah, sure. So I took the Bringers of Flame detachment of the Adepta Sororitas, which is a detachment that gives everything advance and shoot and +1 to strength on your ranged weapons when you're within 12 inches. And I loaded it up with damage. So we have Morven Vol, who accompanies her 3 Nundums, as I say, or Paragon Warsuits. We have the Triumph of St. Catherine. We have a Palatine with the enhancement Righteous Rage, which makes her hit harder in combat, particularly when she's attached to some novitiates. We also have a Jump Pack Canoness with the Surplice of St. Istilela, if I remember correctly, which is an enhancement that gives her a 2+ armor save, 4+ invuln, which she has natively, and then a 5+ feel no pain. She's just kind of there to float around, do actions, tie stuff up. And then we also have 3 Immolators, 3 Castigators, 2 with an autocannon, 1 with a battle cannon. All the Immolators are equipped with twin-linked multi-meltas. And the role of the Immolators there is not only to strip cover when they shoot at things, but also to carry my infantry. So 1 Immolator splits 10 Dominions. The 5 that have the Flamers go in the Immolator, the 5 that don't kind of stand off or screen, perform other duties. And then the other Immolator splits another squad of 10 Dominions, but these 5 Dominions have melt-the-guns instead of Flamers. And then again, the other 5 stand around somewhere and screen and move, block, and score points. And then finally, the last Immolator splits my 10 Novitiates. So 10 Naked Ladies will be standing out in the field somewhere dying for the Emperor, and another 5 will be going in the Immolator with the Palatine, so that when she's fighting on an objective, she will get rerolls to hit, and that will help proc her lethal hits ability if I'm fishing for 6s. I think, and then importantly, 10 Seraphim all equipped with hand flamers. I think that's the list. Anything else, Nick?
No, that's the list. You got it, Scott. Really strong Sisters of Bringers of Flame list, Sisters of Battle. Scott actually just came on a podcast just the other week talking about a slightly varied version of this list, but like mostly the same concepts. He did really well winning another GT, so you can check that battle report out. But let's talk about Marshall Peterson's Orcs over here. I'll go ahead and read that one off. This is Scott's opponent from the finals of the US Open in Tacoma. He had Boss Snikrat, Gazkothraka, and a War Boss. Of course, he's playing the War Horde over here. This is basically the revised index detachment for Orcs. 3 units of 10 Beast Naga Boys, 1 truck, a Battle Wagon, 2 units of Gretchen, 2 units of 5 Flashkits, 1 unit of 2 Mega Knobs, which Gaz joins to, a unit of 5 Knobs, which I imagine joined that War Boss, 2x5 Storm Boys, and 3 Kill Rigs to house those Beast Snagga Boys. So on the offset, it looks like pretty much your standard issue Orcs stage, Wog turn 2, charge them in the face kind of army, big damage all the time. Awesome.
And that's pretty much what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really get it. So let's go ahead and lay out the game a little bit. So we played on the Games Workshop terrain format, and it was take and hold, and it was hidden supplies for 6 objectives. The middle one splits, and search and destroy. So now we've got the game pulled up on screen here. This is actually Scott's deployment and then Marshall's deployment. And basically here you can see we've screen capped it at Marshall's turn 1 movement phase. This is before he charges or anything like that. But Scott, why don't you kind of set the stage for how you deployed, what your ideas were during deployment, your scout moves with all those dominions, and kind of the stage for the game here.
So my typical approach to deploying this army in general is to find the shooting angles on the flanks. So you'll see that my castigators are set up to go down each flank, and similarly with my immolators. I want my immolators in relatively aggressive positions that if they scout forward, then can advance and shoot or move and drop some dominions, that they'll be able to find some targets, but also in a position where if they scout backwards, they'll be relatively safe. That's kind of explaining the positioning of the tanks. I wanted to keep Morvenn Vahl safe behind that obscuring piece of terrain, and then I wanted my Seraphim to be able to go out and strike early if needed, maybe jump behind a wall, or shoot and scoot in front of my opponent to move block. So they're safe 1 inch away from that wall, and I don't think that they were going to get touched from Marshall's turn 1 if he decided to wah, or if he decided to come at me turn 1. Now the Triumph looks like she's in a bit of a weird position. The difficult part about the terrain piece there near the Triumph is that it's too short for her to hide her cherubs behind. So if I stood her there, she could get shot by something. And in retrospect, maybe I would have been okay with that because Marshall was going to be looking for juicier targets anyway. So where she ended up standing was behind the obscuring piece of terrain, within 6 inches of each of those 3 vehicles that you can see there closest to her, so that in my turn, those 3 vehicles will benefit from the movement buff. And then her role after that would be to move towards the top table, the top part of your screen, where she can then give the movement buff to those other vehicles and units standing towards the top of the screen. And then finally, we have my screens. So the last thing that you want to do against orcs or world eaters is to lose the game turn 1 because you didn't screen or move block appropriately. So I think it's rare that orcs wah turn 1. I feel like most people deploy in such a way that they don't get that much benefit from it. But I didn't want to get beat turn 1 if he did decide to wah, particularly on a search and deployment where he would have plenty opportunity to get into my lines pretty easily. So I had 5 novitiates standing across the middle of the table, and then 5 dominions more towards the bottom of the screen, and then 5 dominions more towards the top of the screen. The position right now on the top of the screen is actually after a reactive move. Games Workshop didn't start this stream until a little bit into Marshall's movement phase, so that's why they are where they are. So that was kind of my deployment, thinking I don't want to lose turn 1, but I also want to take advantage of any opportunity I have to put fire into his lines if I do go turn 1, and which I think brings up a really, really important point about this match. Oh boy, did I want to go first. He could not hide everything, and we'll see how devastating my first turn was in terms of how much damage I dealt to him with my shooting. And if I had that opportunity to put that kind of damage into him turn 1 where he didn't wah, it would have, I think, made a huge difference in the outcome of this game. But unfortunately, I did go second, so I had to brace for impact and then counterpunch as I was able. Nick, what kind of thoughts do you have about my deployment? The only thing that I was kind of unhappy with was the dominions towards the bottom. What I should have done is put them in a position where the novitiates can bridge to that little piece of wall there on that piece of terrain, and then have my Dominion scout move right behind the terrain 1 inch away. So I effectively keep my screen without exposing my Dominions. I think that was the only thing that I was really dissatisfied with. But what do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think conceptually you've got a lot of the right ideas here. I mean, you don't want to lose turn 1 to orcs, that's for sure. Especially in quarters, it's more online that they turn 1 charge and wog you and kill you. Castigators looking for line of sight lines makes a lot of sense. Protect more than Vol makes a lot of sense. There from 1 inch behind the wall makes a lot of sense. So on the offset, nothing looks like unintuitively wrong. I mean, I would expect nothing less for like the finals of Tacoma, right? But I think there's just like micro inefficiencies which we can look to shore up, which add up to a better game overall. So something like this Dominion squad isn't really protecting anything. It's just exposed. It is sort of threatening to get to this objective, but you're never going to hold this objective. So at best, it's like threatening to contest it maybe on a decent advanced roll. You have miracle dice, but is that where you want to spend them? And you're opening up to oops getting shot or oops getting charged by the orcs if they go first. And you know they're going first after the scout move. The reason I say it's not actually protecting anything is because the avenue for attack for the orcs from this perspective is pretty bad. Like the only thing they can do is attack Seraphim. This is after the kill rigs move, so let me try to redraw the orc deployment zone as best I can, because this is a shot from Marshall's turn 1 after it's done, or after it's done moving rather. So if we draw a line roughly halfway through the table and 9 inches away from the center, it's going to stop like right there. And this is what I try to do while you were explaining your turn. So it's going to look, circularly semicircle like that, basically. And from this position, like the kill rig here is pretty much as close as it can be. It can't really charge these dudes because, again, you're 1 inch in from the wall. And that's being stopped by these girls here. So this kill rig could come this way, but again, nothing to charge. So I think that sister squad in particular is overexposed. And where that could be a better resource for screening is basically as the game kind of goes underway, you'll see your center gets really hit hard in the first turn, and you basically lose most, if not all, of these girls. I'm not against the idea of screening with them because something does kind of have to die. I do like the idea of these girls coming back, as you already noted, because, again, you can basically not lose that unit turn 1. And then if you have these girls here kind of standing where the Seraphim are standing, and the Seraphim can stand behind it, and they could actually also elongate your screen this way should Marshall try some ridiculous charge like this. They'll help block that side angle where that ruined wall is no longer protecting you. So they would have more functional purpose there, I think, more as insurance than anything else. But at that point, Marshall's not incentivized to call the WOG turn 1 at all, which is what we want. And then he basically has this one unit to destroy. Like this one unit's going to get obliterated, but we're not losing all 15 foot dominions. We're losing 5, and we largely accomplish the same effective don't die turn 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing I was thinking of the Dominions is they would be able to maybe contest that primary, like you said. But the problem with that is I didn't anticipate, I should have anticipated, I suppose, the speed at which this game was going to come down.
Yeah.
And they would be much better served at just providing another screen or move block than trying to run onto an objective to deny 5 points, which ultimately this game is really not going to come down to who's going to squeak out more points. It's who's going to table who first.
And that's exactly the lesson to be learned there. Not every game is like that. In some games, this is a fine move, and I'm sure that's kind of muscle memory, you making it to a degree. But in the orc match,
Absolutely.
Search and Destroy, it is literally who kills each other in the first 3 turns. And at that point, their better value is a screen.
Yep.
All right. So that all makes sense. I don't love Triumph's deployment. As you described it, it does make sense. You don't want her getting blasted by flash gets. I think it's fine. Like, she's fast enough to redirect herself, and she does buff a certain portion of your tanks and then redirect herself to the rest of your army. So I think she's largely fine. I don't have a big issue with that. It's just awkward. I'll admit that. Overall, though, I think your game plan is sound. I think having 2 more resources across turns 2 and 3, basically this unit and that unit, if as we unfold the battle port, if Marshall doesn't scoop those, that's going to be a big detriment to him. But assuming he does, you're basically out of cheap screens that you don't care about before your first turn. And at that point, you have to use real units, which is already putting you on the back foot, which is something you'll see. Okay, Scott.
So why don't we pull up what happened after Marshall's first turn of shooting and combat?
This is basically Marshall's turn 1. Let me pull that up here. So this is the remnants, the final of Marshall's turn. Looks like he scored area denial and claimed the center, killed those 5 girls. What's interesting here is these girls died without any real commitment because they were flash gated off the table, which is less than ideal. These girls did live. They lost 2 out of their number, which just makes them a smaller screen, but actually they got off kind of scot free.
Hey, nice. So, all right, so I'm looking at this now. A couple of things. The immolator that is no longer present. Marshall spent a good amount of time hemming and hawing whether or not he was going to cleanse with the kill rig or shoot my immolator. And I was really disappointed when he decided to shoot my immolator, admittedly. He got 1 wound through and needed a 5-up to kill it. So I think that ultimately that immolator took maybe 2 wounds, and it was a 6 and an 11. So that's how you get an immolator destroyed, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is really sad.
Yeah, that is a recurring theme. And then the other thing is that while those dominions were exposed on that kind of angular piece of ruin towards the center of the table that we talked about being kind of in a bad spot, 4 of them were picked up in shooting, and then the last one was picked up by a random indirect shot from a kill rig. So a little bit unfortunate, but now I'm stuck with 1 less immolator, 5 fewer novitiates, and 5 fewer dominions. Yeah. And that's kind of where we start my turn.
Right. So pretty much a great turn for Marshall. I mean, he's just like staged on you a little bit. He's still very in the open, and you're about to tee off on him. So in that sense, he's about to experience a world of hurt. But he killed an immolator. He killed your screens. Like, that's as good of a turn one as he could have asked for.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talked about, I think that I wish I had, 5-ish more dominions left. But other than that, he got lucky with the immolator. But other than that, I think still my game plan is still going to go according to what my plan is so far.
For sure. The mistakes we're pointing out are like micro inefficiencies and small mispositions. Overall, your strategy is sound. So let's hop over to your turn. You can really explain your movement phase here. All right, this is a lot has happened. So what were we thinking?
Yeah. So I started my turn trying to figure out what measurements I needed to get and what distances I needed to get to in order to shoot things. So that explains a lot of the positioning of my tanks and vehicles. So you'll notice the Triumph did what I said she was going to do. She was going to give the movement buff to the tanks down in the bottom part of my deployment zone, and then she was going to scoot over and give the movement buff to my other tanks and Nundums. So here is point 1 where I think I made a mistake. She is just taken out of the game.
She's out of the game.
And she is not a bad kind of brawling piece, and I should have had her in a position where she could brawl turn 2. Yeah. So I think what I should have done is, even though she started kind of down there and giving the movement buff, I'm okay with that. But instead of taking her in a direction where I wanted to keep her safe from shooting, I should have said, oh my God, Marshall's going to have way more targets. She's not going to get shot. What do I care if she's going to get seen? So I should have taken her from behind that ruin and just put her right onto my objective, and ideally on the front side of the ruin if I could. So that way, in my turn 2, she's ready to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of mistake 1.
Really agree. I think Triumph, just to reiterate the point, she's out of the game, but overall, like, I was fine with her here, but I think she could do the same buff to the Volgons and those Seraphim and get Seraphim actually faster, but just going that way instead of that way.
Correct. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. So I could have gotten a little bit more movement on the Seraphim, and I could have had her in a better position. Now, the rest of my positioning, I think I'm kind of okay with. So what I wanted to do is just tear into Marshall and do as much damage as I could, and hopefully have a move block that prevents him from engaging me in a way that he wants to in the following turn. So you'll notice that a couple of the measurements that are important, the Dominions right in the center of the table have melt the guns, and they're just barely an inch off from the Storm Boys in the center of the table. So the ones towards the Nundums over there.
Oh, these ones.
These
ones right here.
Yep. So there's a 4 Dominions right there, and they are exactly 12 inches away from a kill rig. Okay. The Castigator with the battle cannon right below them is also 12 inches away from a kill rig. Mm-hmm. The Immolator behind that Castigator is 18 inches away from a kill rig.
Yep.
And then the Castigator next to the Immolator is 24 inches from the farthest kill rig.
Okay.
Yep, and then the Nundums are 18 inches away from the furthest kill rig. Not the one all the way towards the bottom of the screen, but the one that's far away from them in the center of the table.
So you basically
So these are all
a lot
yeah.
of
Go ahead.
overlapping fields of fire where your Immolator, your Castigator, and your Dominions are all set up to optimize firepower into this kill rig. And then if it doesn't die, you have the Castigator here and these more Vinval Paragons that can obviously finish it up. Or if it does die, the Paragons and this Castigator are lined up efficiently into that kill rig there.
You got it. So I wanted to make sure that my goal was to kill both of those kill rigs and then move block what comes out. And whatever bonus I get is hunky-dory. Now, the other thing is looking towards the top of the screen, I tried to set up something similar. So the Immolator towards the top of the screen is within range of both kill rigs. The Castigator is within 24 inches of the truck down there. And I have many options to shoot. So the Seraphim there are more towards his side of the table, and their goal is going to be to flame something that comes out of one of these transports and then scoot and move block. Now, I noticed there was a lot of talk about my positioning after I scooted that we can kind of talk about and explore a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure.
The only thing I think that we haven't touched on is the Dominions that are kind of between my Immolator and my Nundums, so that kind of squad of 5 in a kind of pyramid formation next to the small ruin. Their goal is to shoot 5 flamers into the Storm Boys in the middle of the table. So they're just to pick up that resource.
Makes sense.
And I think in my target prioritization here,
talk to me how you.
It's
shot
important.
Those units also.
Yeah. So the things that only had one target, for example, the Immolator was a good place to start into that kill rig that's 18 inches away. There's no other place it's going to be putting its multi-melta. Mm-hmm. So I start stripping cover that way. Once cover is stripped, then you can put other targets in there. And I tried to save my Nundums, thinking that I would pick up the second kill rig with them, which I think is ultimately what they did. Yeah. But I tried to use my tanks to pick up the kill rig that's a little bit closer, and then if I needed to, use my Nundums to pick up the second kill rig. So I think my shooting phase, actually, I think is actually going to be the next picture.
Okay.
If we want to
skip
advance.
Yeah. Sorry,
in Bringers of Flame, I can't remember exactly how I did it, but you have to keep in mind that you're going to be stripping cover, and then you're going to be adding armor penetration, both from the Immolators and the Castigators, respectively.
So it's a double whammy.
So,
really. Mm-hmm. Yeah, plus 2 AP function.
So you have to target them very kind of carefully, actually, and it becomes more of a headache than I thought it was going to be before I brought the triple Immo, triple Castigator.
Intuitive, right? But like the order of operations and which weapon fires where is a real consideration for that army.
Yeah, and I think another nice point to keep in mind for you Bringers of Flame folks is Castigators have Stormbolters. So every once in a while, just throw a random Stormbolter shot into something. The adding additional armor penetration is no longer linked to a battle cannon or autocannon shot, so you just have to plink it with a Stormbolter, and all of a sudden you have bonus armor penetration. Yeah. So if you're coming down to you're about to kill something, but the next target you want to shoot, you want to get that bonus AP, then flip the Stormbolter into that one.
Definitely.
So just remember that for you Bringers of Flame folks.
So talk to me about the shooting phase. It looks like you've killed a lot of orcs here.
It does. I was feeling pretty good, notably because I killed a kill rig. The first kill rig I killed actually exploded in his lines and did, I think it was amounted to a total of 20-ish mortal wounds, and only did crazy. 2 mortal wounds to my Seraphim. Mm-hmm. Thought that was a pretty good trade. But And we had this really funny discussion at the table that you guys probably weren't privy to, but he was measuring where could he careen, and he was just barely unable to squeak the back of his kill rig base past my Seraphim. It's a normal move when you do the careen, so he has to end outside of engagement range. Yep. So it was a narrow miss for me, because otherwise this game would have been over, bottom of turn 1 instead of bottom of turn 2. He would have exploded into my lines and it would have been miserable.
Yeah.
So
exploding right here
would have
been horrific.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't calculated and pre-measured, but I will say it is hard to pull that move off as the kill rig. First you have to explode, then you have to spot land. Having the move block there in place was good on an instinctive level, just because it blocks that kind of stuff, and it did work out for you.
Yeah, and I honestly think that I don't even know, even if he could get past the Seraphim, then I think he might run into the issue of being too close to the Dominions. So I think it
Right,
was fine.
right. There's so much there. It's like a tough landing spot for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. So you'll notice a couple of things. I'm contesting the top objective with those Dominions. So my intent when I deployed them, they served their purpose. They're
Yeah.
contesting the
They did their
objective I
job for
wanted them
sure.
to be able to contest. But again, this was anticipating a game that was going to be slower. And so I should have used them differently to set up
Right.
for another move blocker screen in the middle of the table.
And
So
I'm glad
that's
you
kind of a
recognize
hindsight
that.
2020 kind of thing.
I want to just highlight that for like watchers because if Scott's unit is doing its job, like it deployed on the line, went forward, contested that far objective that we're talking about here. It's Snickrot versus one girl. But that's just not a job that I matters, and that's what Scott's identifying. What matters in this game is just
Yep.
move blocking and shooting, and that just over and over
Yep.
again.
So, and then another couple of things. So you'll notice that both kill rigs are dead and the truck is dead. Um, the order that I shot things ultimately ended in killing the kill rigs first, always getting out of the kill rig towards the front. My Seraphim shooting and picking them up and then scooting. And then I was left with, well, my Castigator doesn't have much left to shoot. Or, one of my vehicles, I said, I didn't have that much left to shoot, so I'll try to pick up the truck. And the truck was, picked up, I think maybe I wasn't even expecting it, and then the flash get out. So here's a couple of learning points for me. One, I'm unfamiliar with the Orcs army. There's not a lot of guys around me locally who play them. Chester does, but I haven't run into him at the tournament scene. So I haven't played them very much. And related to that inexperience is my significant underestimation of the flash kit output, particularly into sisters' bodies, who are T3 and they're shooting strength 6 weapons.
Right.
So I think that maybe I made some minor movement errors here and there, but I think that on a bigger scale, my inexperience into orcs led to my underestimation of and misunderstanding of some of what their capabilities were and what they do. So if I had the opportunity to take this turn again, I think that I would take my shots into that truck first and then see what fell out. And if the flash kits fell out, I would shoot them. And this is important because I can move block the boys coming out of the truck, but the flash kits don't have to go anywhere to do their damage. They're going to be shooting me at range. So I would rather pick them up and move block the boys. And I think that's a much better use of my resources and a much better way to whittle down his and minimizing the impact of his. Because you'll see here at the end of my turn, he's got 10 flash kits staring down all my screens.
Yeah. And
Other notable things about this that I think were discussed on stream quite a bit is my positioning of the Seraphim. So I'm going to explain my thought process, and then Nick, you can tell me where I'm wrong. So what I wanted to do here was one option was just go straight at him and kind of be in front of the boys that are actually hiding under the ruin. You can't see that right there next to his battle wagon. There's boys there. And then go straight at him and keep Gaz behind the wall. I think, again, part of my decision not to do that was my misunderstanding of the output of boys, maybe. I was trying to screen both the middle of the table and the boys coming out of the kill rig down at the bottom of the screen. I put Seraphim in a position next to the Castigator so those guys also could not get into my into Morven Ball. So that was kind of the reason there, and the kill rig couldn't advance and charge into there either. So I think that was kind of the reasoning there. But Nick, why don't you tell me what I should have done here?
Yeah, overall, again, I think you hit the nail on the head in a lot of places, and it's like a series of small errors that I think have given Marshall more room than we needed to wiggle out of turn 2 jail, basically. So let's rewind the clock just a little bit and kind of take a look at where your turn was starting. So this is the end of Marshall's turn. So largely what I'm looking at in terms of what you can be doing, should be doing, is very similar to what you were. Like, let's bring the Paragons forward. Let's bring the Castigators into the game. Let's get some action on this guy, this guy. This has to die pretty trivially. And then aside from that, let's get Triumph involved. Obviously, apply our movement buffs to these Castigators and apply our movement buffs to the 4 Balgons, the Seraphim, the Castigator here. And then the next thing I'd be looking at is how can I make Marshall's life hell? And I think this is where, in my brain, my strategy would basically be like Seraphim move 21 inches and full conga line as big as we can make it. And then This is insurance, even if the shooting phase goes horribly. So the kill rigs are stuck on the wrong side of the Seraphim, and similarly, Gaz, these boys, the truck, all of it's move blocked in like as close as possible. So you recognize this for sure as like one of the things that you can do with your army here. But you came backwards, and part of that is not the experience versus orcs not recognizing how much damage the boys do. The flash gets being the shooting thing, but I'm trying to kind of think turns ahead with it. And that next turn, Marshall didn't call the wog in turn one. It's pretty reasonable to assume he will call the wog on battle round two, or wants to call the wog on battle round two and get into it. If you can either make that wog pretty meaningless or so unattractive he doesn't do it, that basically just means you get another free round of shooting into his armies. So what I mean by really just shutting down the wog turn is, instead of using these girls to contest, and maybe they can do this while contesting, but really basically advance these girls. And I would be looking to use miracle dice on these advanced rolls here, because this is to me what really matters more so than damage. And just like connect that, like advance there with those three specific models, and something like that with their movement, and then like that with the Seraphim movement. Because the Seraphim are about 24 inches of move block, full stretched, extended, and 3 Dominions is about 6. So you got about 30 inches of you're not going anywhere you can play with. And I think that would be my guiding factor. And then
Yeah.
the
And I did use miracle dice for my advances too. I was trying to get in the best positions I could. I think I failed to give my Seraphim the movement bonus, which I think is one of it. But I actually used a miracle dice on the top squad of Dominions to get where they could go. But I totally agree with you. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
No, not at all. The thing that I think was interesting is how you structured your terms and turn in terms of line of sight. So let me hop over to the next picture, and we'll talk about what you prioritized and where it led you be. So these Dominions prioritize getting within 12 of the kill rig. This guy prioritized getting within 12 of the kill rig. This one, 18 of that kill rig. Volgon's 18 of the second kill rig. And Castigator, 24 of the truck in the back. So all of this is prioritizing maximizing your damage brackets. And by that, I mean basically your +1 strength within 12 inches on your Castigators, your rapid fire at 24 on your Castigators. The minions obviously have 12-inch range on their weapons. They need to get within 12 to fire. And Volgons have 18 on their multi-meltas. So you're lining up your targets. You're putting yourself at the most extreme range bracket possible. And I think that's really good. You definitely don't want to be closer than necessary. But because of the nature of how you move blocked, I think you let this flank collapse a little bit. You can see in the movement phase here for yourself that you really have quite a good foundation going for what we had just talked about. Like really, if you just scoot these Seraphim 6 inches this way and just continue that line of Seraphim like that, and these Dominions are more covered like this, you pretty much have everything move blocked. And then from here, these charges are nigh impossible, at least super hard. So I think that is great. You've left yourself a little open on this side, and I think here's where you may be a little bit too aggressive with this push because you give him 2 tanks. But overall, I think the placement on the turn is pretty good, and target priority is also pretty good. So let's fast forward one more to see kind of the results of your damage as well. And we talked about the triumph should be in this spot too.
Yeah. It's funny. So
Yeah.
we were talking about the move block and trying to stretch the Seraphim.
Yeah.
I totally forgot 2 of them died to the explosion. So I was like going to reach and pick up my 2 more girls. I was like, wait, where are they?
I know that
And
explosion.
even Jeremy,
that was such a big
Jeremy
deal.
at the table was like, oh, you lost 2. I was like, oh no, that really messed up my move block plans there.
It really did. No, you lost 2 Seraphim and you lost 2 Dominions there, and it really is. Oopsies. It goes to show basically how much those models matter. What you could have done, and this is like insurance on insurance with your Seraphim, they only have to stay on 6.1 inches from the kill rig. Now the kill rig did careen, so there's not really anything you can do about that, or it could have careened. But it by standing 6.1 away, you're not losing any distance because you fire and fade 6 forwards, and you're 1 inch away anyway. But now you're not losing models to explosions, because move blocking is like a critical component to playing against orcs and just these assault-based armies, and they will look, like skilled players will look for every finicky explosion, overwatch, random shot to break a move block, to bust the hole open, to kill you as possible. Every insurance you can put into your move block you can is really worth doing, is the lesson there. Because you would have an
Also,
extra 6 inches or so.
you'll notice my miracle dice tray there is empty. So I was definitely using everything I could for advances, damage, you name
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, you were definitely. I mean, it is empty for sure. And I'm not critiquing your miracle dice expenditure.
Oh
Also,
no, that's fine. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What I'm really confused about, though, and I'm still not sure. I think this would have actually won you the game in hindsight. With seeing how it played out, is these Seraphim scooched and scooted back, and what that allowed Marshall to do, and I think this is the critical junction in the game, is basically move advance, get value out of that advance rule because we're not just move blocked. Get basically 1 inch away from all these Seraphim the following turn. Shoot the Seraphim dead with flash gets, which I know you did not see coming, but is definitely a real thing. Flash gets are. This is why they have flash gets in orc armies, frankly, is to clear screens so you can charge through them. And then now you're in the position where there's an 8-inch charge into the Volgons to end the game. This Castigator is probably dead. You're not really move blocking this at all, so that's also going to get overwhelmed. And then this kill rig can get in the game that way too. So you've like attempted the move block, I would say, and you were in a position where pre-explosion it would have been game ending for the orcs. Post-explosion it would have been very effective, but maybe not game ending.
So
But here, I just don't know that it's doing much of anything. And then this girl has prioritized contesting the objective instead of extending the move block. But at the same time, one girl is only going to do so much.
where do you think I should have put the Seraphim?
Like specifically from
Yeah.
let's be as specific as possible here because I want to make sure we get the move blocking right. Right here, we're going to lose 3 casualties or 2 casualties in the Seraphim unit, and I'm probably going to pick girl number. Let's get the line tool. Oh no, I keep clicking buttons. I'm sorry. Right here, line tool. We can do it. This Seraphim here and this Seraphim here dead. And that's because I'm valuing this side of the move block more than that side of the move block. So from there, let's try to guesstimate where 6 inches would put us. And put this Seraphim here stands here. So like your stuff's not fitting through this ruin gap in that model. This Seraphim here basically comes 6 inches straight over right there. This Seraphim here kind of comes here. So you're 2 inches this way. It's not quite the T-bone, but it's close to it.
Yep, I gotcha.
And then 4.
And then down in front of that wall, the ruin.
6, 7, 8. Yes.
So I'm just going to challenge your hypothesis here. I know you're the coach, but ultimately, it turns out that I don't think that my failure to move block Gaz made much of a difference because he failed his charge. So he did get 12 strength 5 AP 0 shots, but I don't know that that would have been game winning because actually Gaz didn't do anything in top of turn 2.
So I hear that.
So I could be wrong.
In that sense,
Yeah,
it
tell me
means
more.
you didn't lose the game by failing the move block. Like if guys hit the charge, I think we can both agree that guys killing Morvenval on turn top 2 is not okay. So you left yourself open to an 8-inch charge to basically lose. Didn't happen.
Yes.
Doesn't make it not a mistake. Separately.
But I guess what I'm saying is, do you think I would have won the game with that move? And if so,
well,
tell me how.
That's the next part to it, is where let's see into the future a little bit.
Yeah.
So if the Seraphim are basically, let's hop forward in time a tad bit. So this is the end of the orc turn. And I don't think you're getting the glorious all the way down after the explosion. It would have been great. But I think you do get about to here, and you do get it's about to there. And that's the Seraphim unit.
Yep.
And then the one Dominion, she can contest here. That's fine. She could have also been here, but that's pretty negligible. I think you're probably getting more value out of the contest. At that point, what does Marshall do in response? And this is the question we got to ask ourselves.
Yep, let's play it forward. I'm ready.
If these Seraphim are where this pink line is, this battle wagon still comes up. The dudes get out. This flank is not looking hot. These flash gates will probably shoot these Seraphim to death, and they're going to die. These 5 Dominions, they'll probably also die to flash gates because flash gates are just jerks like that. And if we think about what Gaz is doing, he might just be stuck on this wall. He might charge out and use the Seraphim as a roadblock. He's kind of not moving. And this kill rig could come up like this, and the orcs can get out and charge this Castigator. So in the worst case scenario, these 2 tanks are engaged / dead. These Dominions are dead. The Seraphim, they're just gone. We all know that. And this Castigator is engaged / dead. And then there's orcs here, because the flash gets needed to see you to shoot you, and orcs here. And you still have a Castigator, Triumph, who should be here, an Immolator, Volgons, and a random sister squad. And probably what is over here, just an orc squad or whatever's in the battle wagon, doesn't kill both of those tanks. To do all of this, to make this connection here and that connection there, does require a WOG. So we are basically saying, okay, despite the fact that
Nick,
Gaz is stuck
light
behind a
bulb.
wall, we're going to call the WOG anyway to get value out of 1/3 of our army. So sure.
And then I pick up 1/3 of his
then you
army,
pick up
and
that
then
1/3
I
of the
make sure
army.
Gaz can't get within
And then Gaz is out
charge
of the
distance
game
on
too.
turn 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Gaz moves 5, and if he's not advancing charging, that's
Perfect.
what he does. So you basically spend
Perfect.
your turn killing what would be orc boys here, and ignoring this mess, and probably killing flash gets with heavy bolters because that's awesome. And then Volgons can probably scoop the kill rig or the battle wagon because one of them will be here and one of them will be here, and the Volgons can just have their way with one of them. And you probably pick the kill rig. It's more threatening in general. And these Dominions are in a position where they can move block that battle wagon again. So you can buy yourself a lot of time. And at that point, we're going into Marshall's third turn because that's assuming you've taken your turn. He's got Gaz and 10 boys, no WOG. He might have a battle wagon over here that's move blocked by these girls. That should be all he has left on the table. So with no WOG, out of position, I think that is your game to lose from that point.
So show me what really happened, Nick.
Oh, this is for you. This is for you. So what really happened is Gaz moved up, the WOG got called, the flash gets moved forward a little bit, the kill rig did come out, the boys did come out. This kill rig went exactly where we just talked about. Some grots are doing grot things, whatever. Snickrot decided to get aggressive, and some boys are coming out too. And basically,
so this is the end of his movement phase.
Yeah, this is the end of Marshall's second turn move phase in the game that actually happened. At this point, Marshall's just called the WOG and full sending his whole army. Like there's nothing back there, and his goals are to essentially clear the Seraphim screen with flash gets and Gaz and a kill rig. Like there's not inconsequential amounts of shots here. And then game-winning charge, also kill these Dominions. They have to die too, which is failable. Like I will say, the flash gets and Gaz and a kill rig killing 2 squads of sisters like that, not very great odds. And then he also has to hit what is essentially an 8-inch charge to that point to engage the Castigator and the Volgons and end the game. And by end the game, I mean like there's orcs all over midfield. You've lost all of your hard hitters, sans for 1 Castigator and Immolator and Triumphs and Guam. So that's what I mean by end the game prematurely. This leaves a lot of room for things to happen out of your control. Also out of Marshall's control, but that's orcs. As sisters you want to control. Because if he hits an 8 rerollable, it's just over. And even if he doesn't hit the 8, you've given a lot of value to his movement phase because Gaz is not stuck in jail here, which would be the exact same gain state, but Gaz is here. And then if he hits a charge, he's here. He could also probably go for lower value charge, but having the Gaz Volgon showdown should mean that one of them dies the second the other connects with them.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. I hear you. I understand that you are not lost in this position. Not at all. If anything, I think going into your next turn, Scott, which we'll cover in just a second, you're still favored to win. But in reality, well, we know what reality was. So let's charge. This is what the orcs' turn looked like after they charge. And basically, Gaz failed this 8-incher, which is what we keep talking about, to end the game on the Volgons. He failed that. But the Seraphim died, the Dominions died, the Flash gets charged up the field to kind of screen for Gaz, the Kill Rig charged up the field to screen for Gaz. The Immolator did die, this Castigator got ragtagged and is basically out of the rest of the fight. This objective is solidly the orcs now, and there's boys kind of all over the place.
So let me tell you about a couple things that happened this turn too.
Yeah.
So you notice there's only 1 tank left up there. at the top of the screen, just a Cascadator, no Immolator.
Yeah.
So, like you say, never blame dice. But I think it's in turn 2 where the dice started to go in his favor, which is important. Although, obviously, like we're talking about, there are a lot of things that I could have done to prevent some of these issues. That being said, I think it's just important for context. So the Waz Zappa gun, or whatever that is, something like that,
Sure.
got its flat 5 damage into my Immolator. And then he shoots the, what is it called, the Wa Tower or some Wur Tower or something like that from the kill rig into that same Immolator. And he gets 1 wound through and needs to roll a 6 to kill my Immolator. Lo and behold, a 6 was rolled. So on just like 2 separate shots, he's done 11 damage to my Immolator.
Yeah.
So that was tough. And then other things here, I think probably went as expected for what I gave him and the position I allowed him to have. I'm wondering, I think I was a little bit nervous about a kill rig hitting my Nundums, and I didn't want to lose that resource. But what do you think about after he fails the charge with Gaz? Should I have put my Nundums into the kill rig?
No, I thought
with a
about
heroic
that
intervention
as a commentator, just sitting in the seat, like thinking about it as if I was the Sisters player, what would I do? And I would also think about it a lot because there's high value in Volgon's killing the kill rig in Marshall's turn because then it's just off the table. It's not blocking.
Absolutely.
It's not a thing. You just get to bypass it. But there's another loss condition in the Volgons are tied up with the kill rig. Like forget the kill rig gets to fight back and like maybe kill some Volgons.
Yeah.
If the Volgons like don't kill it, which shouldn't happen, can happen. Immolators are dying to war towers out here. Then your Volgons don't get to activate. I mean, they could spend their shooting phase to kill the kill rig and then charge something else, but they are not doing the Volgon everything dies. And that's what they need to do in this position. So I'm
glad you agree.
Your choice. Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't we go to, do you want to go to my turn? Is there anything else you want to comment on there?
I think this is good. This is just like the cascading effect of an improperly finished move block, basically. But let's see how you handle it. Because again, like I said, I think you're favored going into your turn because he's so exposed.
Yeah. So here I am. Oh, I did Rapid Ingress to Canis. Mostly it was like, I don't know what value to get out of her. Yeah. So I put her down near where he brought in Boss Nickrod or whatever his name is. And I thought, maybe I'll just go pick up that guy. That's why she's over there.
Yeah. That's a little side plot happening.
Yeah, a little subplot. The Canoness, the jump pack Canoness for Nickrod subplot. Yeah. Anyway, so what my goal was here, I was thinking that I had the damage to pick up the kill rig, to try to pick up the boys, to pick up the flash kits, and to pick up Gaz. And the Castigator was just going to shoot into combat at the top of the screen and try to pick up as many boys as I could. There are still Dominions in the same place they were last turn, because if they move, they get overwatched by flash kits, which I just didn't feel like getting shot at. Oh, and in retrospect, I think I had the CP to maybe do Armor of Contempt on the Seraphim, and I wonder if I should have done that. I'm not sure what the answer is there if they were dead anyway, frankly.
I would have, because any amount of Seraphim that could have blocked the Gaz charge, like 2 models surviving is so different from 0 models surviving, even though they're going to die in 2 seconds anyway. Just blocking that Gaz charge opens the game up for you.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if it was clear to the watchers, but it was a 7 direct, but because he had to go around the 1 Seraphim that was left, it was an 8, and he rolled a 7 on the chart. Right. So if it wasn't for the one that survived, he would have connected.
So that's even more the point, right? Like the Armor Contempt have 2 alive, now it's a 9 or 10, right?
Yep. Thankfully, it didn't matter, but yes, I see the point.
It's hard to see these lines, so don't beat yourself up too bad. These are like super nuanced plays here.
So here's where I think I lost the game. Seraphim movement aside, I think I messed up my target prioritization and allocation with my Nundums.
Yeah,
they have been so reliable for me that I was thinking that they could just pick up whatever they needed to.
Did your Nundums do what my Nundums do? Is that what happened?
What's that?
Did your Nundums do what my Nundums do? In that they don't kill everything.
This is the first and only time they didn't kill everything.
Okay, welcome to my life.
So here's what I did. So I was thinking to myself, boy, I don't know what those things behind Gaz do, and I don't want them to smack into me next turn. So maybe I'll pick up a couple of those. And I will split fire, which you never want to hear those words. Am I right?
Right.
And I'll put, Fidelis into those guys because I don't really know what they do and I didn't ask enough questions. And then I will put 4 multi-meltas into a kill rig because full hit and wound rerolls.
Yeah.
It's got 7 wounds left. I'll just drop a 6 on it. All I got to do is get 1 through. And then if it lives on 1, that's going to have to be cut out. Then I'll just charge and tank shock with my castigator and pick up 1 mortal wound. Like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then the grenades I put into the flash kits to clear away that screen, which I'm okay with that decision. Just to get a couple of wounds through, and then I'll pick up whatever flash kits are left with the Flamer ladies. And in fact, I think I shot the Flamer Dominions first to try to pick up the flash kits before I needed to fire the grenades. So that, I think, and then you'll see my novitiates got out at the bottom of the screen thinking that they were going to charge and kill some boys. So we can talk about what actually happened first and what I should have done second.
Okay.
So, I got 4 multi-melta wounds through onto a kill rig, and he passed 4 of 4 5-ups.
Yep.
So that was problem number 1.
Yeah.
And I picked up a couple of those guys that I tried to pick up a couple of those guys. So they were kind of the unit behind gas, whatever they're called. Yeah. And then I, instead of shooting Fidelis there, I should have shot them into the boys in the lower right corner. I think they're Beast Naga boys, but into the lower right-hand side of the screen to weaken them up for a charge from the novitiates. Yeah. So I should have put Fidelis there. So I think that was really where I messed up my target allocation, and I should have focused on bringing down the resources that I know I could have brought down. Yeah. You'll actually watch at the end of the game, Marshall and I had a little fun roll-off just to see if I had to put that extra multi-melta into the kill rig if it would have died. Oh, no. And still I only got, he passed another invul, and then I got 1 wound through. I did 8 damage, and he passed 7 feel no pain, so it was still down to 1 room. Yeah. Anyway, or 2 feel no pain, still down to 1 room. Anyway, just for fun.
What were the
so I think that was probably my biggest problem this turn is deciding what my target allocation was.
Yeah, split firing and having it not work is not great. What were the castigators trying to do?
Yeah. Let's see. I think the castigators were picking up flash kits in the back. Well, I had 1 immolator and 1 castigator. I'm not entirely certain how I target prioritized, but I knew I had to pick up the flash kits, and I should have put more into the Beast Naga boys in the lower right-hand corner. Flamers were just picking up whatever infantry they could. I think that's kind of the punchline of how I decided to do things.
So hot take here, in terms of target priority, I think the flash kits don't matter, and that's because they've already killed the infantry. I mean, you do have these minions, but they're not in line of sight of those flash kits. And you do these novitiates, but they're probably dead anyway. And
I think I was traumatized by how much they just did to me.
It's interesting because the flash kits are a tool in the orc army. This is, again, orc knowledge. And that they are there to solve specific matchup problems and solve screens. And in this case, this isn't one of those matchups where flash kits just run the show. This is a match where flash kits kill screens to let gas through. And that turn already happened. So flash kits are just very expensive orcs now. And like flash kits shooting castigators and Volgons, you have armor of contempt, you have cover, they're AP 1, it does 0 damage. They wound on 5s.
Yep.
So in that sense, I would definitely value like castigators shooting boys here. Like he can pick up most of that by himself. Let's pop the multi-meltas into this, probably all 6. Make sure that just goes to sleep.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, this
I think it comes into my inexperience with the matchup too. Yeah,
right. The thing standing right in front of Vala also has to die. And here, as you can see, Triumph is basically 1 turn behind where she was. Triumph in this turn could also probably be here and be the person who kills this, which frees this castigator to shoot anything else. Like it can kill probably the knobs in the back, the flash kits in the front that are screening. So in an ideal turn where everything was pre-positioned properly, these orcs would die to a combination of Vol plus novitiates. These flash kits would die to a combination of Volgons and castigator, an immolator heavy bolter shot. These knobs would probably die just to take some oomph out of the next turn. The kill rig, I mean, okay, a kill rig surviving the Volgon shouldn't happen, but it's also possible this castigator goes in there. Guys should die.
And then even if I left those 4 flash kits back towards his deployment zone alive, that doesn't mean anything.
They mean nothing in this game. Yeah, this I think you ignore. This is just kind of happening to you. which does
Yep.
suck. But
Exactly.
I think a way you could look at your turn also is you have two options. This Castigator can sit in this combat and just shoot heavy bolters straight into it, and just that's its life. Or you could use a Desperate Breakout for 1 CP, put the Castigator here, and now it's move blocking the kill rig out of the game. And these Dominions with Flamers can just be the ones who shoot that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you had a lot of options this one. I think they're also in position to shoot here. So I'm really fine with like how that Castigator staying in that combat. It's really more of a Vol being a turn back, the Castigator prioritizing the flash gets in the back instead of something in the front, and then Volgon splitting fire and it not working. Just that's not it.
So I think before we move on to like what happened at the end of this turn, one other possibility was I just keep Vol back a turn and shoot stuff. But in retrospect, I don't. That was something I discussed with Jeremy actually, getting his hot takes. But I think I would have fallen way too far behind on scoring, maybe. But I think I needed to respond here. I don't know what you think.
You could have responded. I think this ultimately goes back to the mistake the previous turn, because this is exactly what the board would look like if Gaz was just here, right? And then Vol and Castigators and Triumph in the right spot could pick up all of this, like without even thinking about it, and then be in a spot where Gaz can't retaliate because he doesn't advance in charge anymore.
So why don't we show the audience here what actually happened?
Yeah, of course.
This is where it gets depressing.
What happened to the board?
All right, so here's what I was thinking. I had a couple ways to deal with Gaz, and he had one guy on one wound left attached to his unit. So I thought, great, I'm just going to precision through Makari and just pick up Gaz. And I was anticipating that Marshall would have spent 2 CP to fight on death, and so he would not have had 2 CP for an interrupt on the novitiates. The alternative was I could have tossed a grenade into that squad, but it has a 5-up feel no pain.
Right.
And if I roll low on the grenade and he rolls high and his feel no pains, then I'm in trouble, because if only one wound goes through, I pick up the model that makes Gaz an attached unit, and then he's just going to put everything on Makari. Right. So I decided not to do that. I decided to go for the charge, and I decided to try to precision out Gaz, and then every swing after that would have to be allocated to Gaz from the Nundums. So I did. Oh boy, a couple of 4-up invulns with the damage 3 weapon from Morven Vol. He passed 1, failed 1, CP re-rolled 1 into a pass, and then I did 12 devastating wounds, and I think he passed probably about half of them. And then the Nundums still get to swing, and they do innumerable amounts of wounds that he passed quite a few 4-ups and 5-ups. So I think Gaz ended the fight phase on 2 wounds left, which is the last spot you want Gaz to be in.
No, I mean,
so I flubbed there. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, at that point, dice or dice. He shouldn't have lived that, but now Gaz is alive, and he's just gonna rip you open. It's a very binary combat, and then somebody is going to die. It's either you or them.
Yep. And so he picks up my 3 Nundums. I've just got Morven Vol left, and he didn't use his 2 CP for fight on death, so he picks up my novitiates with counter-offensive, and I decide, what the hell, if the fight phase goes my favor, I want the kill rig tied up so it doesn't charge in and tank shock my Nundums. So I charge him with the Castigator. Castigator's put down to 4 wounds. And I think this is where the curtain falls.
Yeah. This is pretty much the end of the game.
And yeah. Want to go forward one more screen here, or is that all I got?
The end of it.
Yeah. So pretty much we talk it out from there. Gaz tries to fall back. I try to overwatch. I actually put a wound through with the missile to kill him, and I think he fails to save, and CP rerolls it into a save, so Gaz doesn't even die. And we just talked it out after that failed overwatch. Everything was dead, pretty much.
Right.
So I got to say, for my closing thoughts before we get to yours, I learned a lot talking about this game with you.
That's what I'm here for.
I learned a lot about the Orcs matchup from playing it. Unfortunately, I wish I kind of had that knowledge going into it. And I think it really goes to show that movement wins games, but movement loses games. And I think that I could have done better with the micro movements and positioning, and that would have put me in a more advantaged position. But Nick, this was this was a blast. I had a lot of fun doing this with you, and I hope that the people watching at home learned a lot too, and can see how it might apply to their games. What do you think,
I hope
Nick?
so. I had a great time. Also, I love coaching. You know, I do this professionally, and I think Scott, you're a pleasure to teach and coach and work with because you play some great Warhammer. I know you lost, and that can be bittersweet, but you made it to the finals not by accident, making it through the shadow round, 9 rounds deep. You also just came off of a GT win a couple weeks ago, and it shows in your play. Like I think I streamed 3 of your games, and in 2 of them the amount of mistakes I could pinpoint were like so microscopic, right? And then in this one, they were a little bit more pronounced and very consequential despite being subtle. But
Yeah,
that can be high level Warhammer, right? Like small mispositions open up floodgates of damage. So I think this is just a matter of faction knowledge, which now you have. You've repped the Orc army, you understand it. We've gone through it. So I think the big thing I would take away here for you as a player, aside from the specifics to this game, would be think actively, and I noticed this in a couple games, think actively of where Triumph wants to be around turns 2 and 3, because I think
hmm
consistently through your games, I think she was just too far back.
you're right. You're right.
She's an OC 6, 18 wound body with 18 attacks. Like get her in there. After she's missiled
Yep.
your army forward with +3 move, have her do something. And then aside from that, think about the ramifications of the move block, which is really trying to put yourself in your opponent's shoes, which is super hard to do if you don't have knowledge of how their army play patterns are and what they want to do. I've been doing this for 20 years already, so that helps. But things like seeing that Seraphim and in real time in this coaching video, you were like, Gaz failed to charge. Does that move block even matter? I'm like, yeah, it matters. Gaz will be 12 inches
Yeah,
further back a turn later. That matters. So, trying to think those turns ahead. But overall, Scott,
yeah.
fantastic play, fantastic performance. You're a pleasure to coach. Great idea for the video. Thank you for pitching it to me. Thank you for taking these pictures so we can put them up on stream. Hopefully the viewers
Yep,
enjoy it.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is an awesome, awesome thing.
Nick, I know we're on your channel, but do you want to tell people more a little bit about Art of War and what kind of services you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, real quick, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and leave a comment. It really helps us grow the channel and continue doing this kind of stuff. This is like a teaser, more of personal coaching or group coaching than actual War Room content. But this is the kind of stuff we do. We review games, we play games, we coach people, and we help you learn the game, become your best. So, we have 3 coaching matches per week. We do strategy sessions, 10-minute tips, jack theories, and lots of list analysis, list theory, faction theory on all kinds of stuff. And we teach the positioning in the game, as you can see, and we really treat Warhammer as a skill and teach you how to get better at that skill. I mean, Scott, you are a War member, so if you have any experiences, that'd be great to share.
Yeah, and Nick didn't ask me to shill for him. This is all just candid stuff we're shooting this stuff about. I have watched every War Room game for the past like couple of years. Just kind of like when I'm working out or just when I got downtime, and I got to say I learned so much from them. And I think that is part of the reason I made it to the final tables is because of the Art of War coaching matches. So thanks,
Awesome.
Nick.
Thank you very much.
If you guys are interested in learning more about Sisters content, I encourage you to check out the Sister Act 40K. We have our own Discord. We have a podcast, and really we just talk about Sisters players, Sisters lore, Sisters strategy. So if you want to become a better Sisters player, check it out.
Yeah, awesome. Sisters Act is a great channel, great podcast, great Discord, great community. They welcomed me with open arms when I was starting my Sisters journey up. Scott is a leader in that community. So check it out, Sisters Act Discord, Sisters Act podcast. They have a Patreon. Go support them also. And if you're not a Worm member and you want some of this awesome, juicy content, check out our 3-day free trial, theworm.vhx.tv. There is a link in the description of the video, and there's a link right below my face over here, so you can't miss it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Scott, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast coaching this match with you. And we'll catch you later.
Thank you so much, Nick. All right, see you.